Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgianna.
Today, we are going to be talking about the 5 apology languages. We probably all know there's 5 love languages, but maybe you didn't know there are 5 apology languages as well. And we are actually going to run through the 5 apology languages quiz live on the show, and Georgiana's going to do hers. I just did mine. But before we get started, we are going to do a self-connection practice to connect with our bodies before we connect with each other and this podcast.
All right. So the great thing about these practices is you can choose what fits your capacity. And normally I would want something that moves my body a little bit more, but moving my body right now causes me a lot of pain. So I am going to walk us through a body connection practice where we don't have to move too much.
Okay.
So finding what your anchoring spot is. What part of your body is firmly touching another body part or a surface. And once you find that spot, can you be there for a full breath, feeling that connection and noticing your breath? And today we're going to bring in textures. So I want you to look for, like, close to you. I mean, you could get up and walk around if you wanted to, but I want you to find a texture and just let your hands touch it and feel it. So I have a fuzzy blanket right in front of me, and I'm just feeling the texture of that blanket, while I also feel my butt on the ottoman. And then I'm going to have you find another texture to look at and to feel. So choose a different texture. And notice the similarities or differences from that last thing you were touching. And be here for a full breath, exploring that texture. And for our last one, I'll have you also change hands. And just notice how it feels to use your other hand and find another texture to explore. What are the similarities to the other textures? What are the differences? How does it feel? Does it feel more or less pleasant than the other ones? And when you're ready, just sitting in a way that feels good and comfortable.
Thanks, Gigi.
You're welcome.
Is there some psychological, sciencey reason you're aware of that touching textures might feel soothing to a person?
Yes, for sure. I don't know if I can explain it properly, but I believe it's like our sensory system and proprioceptive input. So, and different sensory experiences can either regulate the nervous system or activate the nervous system. And so that's why in a lot of schools who understand sensory processing, they'll have sensory bins. I don't know if you remember in kindergarten or preschool, you have the sandbox and the bean bin and, different things that, the water bin and the clay. And that's not just all for fun. It also helps with the nervous system.
Right.
So I encourage everyone to explore or discover or bring some curiosity to, like, what sensory experiences, and right now we're experiencing touch, but you could also have smell and taste and, the other ones. Which ones soothe you? Which ones help anchor you? Which ones help bring you back to your body? And can you add that into your day? Like, I have tons of sensory things that I use throughout the day.
Yeah.
And they just sort of get brought along in the moment of whatever I'm engaging in and whoever I'm engaging with. And they help me keep a sense of like, I'm here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there are probably, or there should be, 5 sensory languages.
Yeah, well, I think they have 7.
Oh,
Like if you talk to an occupational therapist, they'll walk you through like touch, smell, taste, sound. Missing one.
no idea.
Sight,
Sound. That
sight,
sight. Yeah,
sight.
yeah. Right.
An obvious one. So those are the ones that seem pretty obvious to most of us. And then there's vestibular, and I think that's to do with your balance.
Oh,
I think. And then proprioception, which is, I
interesting.
think, touch. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know that those other 2 that no one really talks about are really important.
Balance. Can you say a bit more about that? Like shifting your balance, regulating your nervous system? Is that what you mean?
I think there's a bit of that. And I don't know, I sometimes I get mixed up between the 2. But one is like some people are not aware or as aware of where their body is in relation to other things.
Ah,
And when you don't have a good sense of that, the world can feel scary and ungrounded and confusing.
yeah. Oh, I imagine. Yeah.
So it's good to have an understanding of how that system, that sensory system works for you, and whether you're compensating or overcompensating in
That's
order
so
to feel a
interesting.
sense of sturdiness in your life.
Wow. Yeah, I have a lot of body awareness and spatial
Mm-hmm.
awareness
Mm-hmm.
and geographic awareness. And I can count 1 or 2 times in my life where I haven't comprehended where I am on a map. Like I wouldn't have been able to place myself or know what was
Mm-hmm.
around. And it was the most disorienting feeling.
Yeah, I think that's the word, like so disorienting, right? And when
Yeah.
we're disoriented, we feel scared. And when
Yeah.
you feel scared, we're in protective mode, and you can't really be your true self when you feel that all your resources have to go into like, am I actually okay? Am I safe
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, blowing my mind that there are 5 apology languages. This came up because I have a housemate who I've noticed doesn't tend to say the words "I'm sorry." She apparently makes restitution. Um, so G was like, "Oh, she's probably got a different apology language." What? Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about this before we do the quiz?
I think I discovered the 5 languages of apology years ago, shortly after I discovered the 5 love languages. It's, I think, Dr. Gary Chapman. And there's free quizzes online to find out what yours are, and we can link to those. But I remember when I discovered them, so much about my childhood and my disgruntled feelings towards my parents made sense. And
Mm,
my frustration with past partners made sense when, when it came to the topic of apologies. And it really blew my mind. And then as I've been doing more healing and growth work and healing my own inner child and my old abandonment wounds, I hypothesize like different reasons why certain styles or languages of apology I felt like were a load of crap, and certain ones were the ones I really truly needed in order
mm,
to feel that we were like repaired,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to do the quiz live. I haven't done it in a number of years, so I'm curious whether the answers would be the same.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Maybe we should quickly go over what the options are and give people a bit
Okay.
of an overview.
Okay.
Um, you just sent me.
So maybe a little bit of context too. I think this is, if someone has done something to hurt you, done something you don't like, don't enjoy, this quiz is highlighting 5 ways that this person could respond to you or deal with it with you for you apologize, for you to feel that it's sufficient.
Yes, and I think we were talking before we hit record about what it means, the feeling of feeling sufficient. And I
Mhm.
realized there are some of these examples of apologies that people could deliver to me, and I would understand that they were sorry and restitution or whatever would have been made,
Mhm.
but I would still be withholding something. I'd have some slight judgment, or I'd hold something back in the future. It wouldn't feel clean, is the word
Yeah.
you used to describe it. Free and
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. So I think maybe it'll all make more sense as I do the quiz and we share a little bit more about it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as people, do their own inner work, that understanding what that means, the feeling in your body of having something be free and clear and unencumbered by judgments or fears or our anxieties, or there's nothing in the way of our connection with this person. It's this
Yeah, I
beautiful.
guess another word I would use is complete. It feels complete. It feels like that loop of misattunement where, there was a rupture. Some people use that language in attachment. There's a rupture between us and we've repaired it with this apology that feels, like it's what you need. And so now we feel clean and complete with each other. And we can sort of like start at this place where we're connected and we're seeing each other's good intentions again.
Yeah.
And
And
until the
not
next
holding
rupture.
grudges.
And
Yeah.
not holding, right?
Yeah.
And because human connection is a series of ruptures and repairs over and over again. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wish someone had told me that a long time ago.
Mhm. Right? It would
Yeah.
have made relationships so much less scary. Things would have made more sense. I would have known, like, oh, this is normal. It doesn't mean either person is bad or terrible, or the relationship is terrible, or that, it's about to blow up in flames.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, there was no such thing as rupture at my house until I became a teenager. Rupture queen of the 90s. So I didn't know that I thought a rupture was the end. Like, I remember
Yeah.
that crushing feeling of it being the end. My assumptions that,
Well,
you
this
know,
is what's interesting too, because I find in most cases, parents love their children unconditionally. Like, I mean, there's lots of conditions I think a lot of us felt we had to live up to, but all the parents I've worked with, no matter how upset they've been with their children, I know and they know, of course they love their children, right? And I highlight to them though, I said, but your children don't know that.
yeah,
And that's the thing is as a child, it feels like rupture can mean the end.
yeah,
If a parent hasn't been really intentional about really clearly and consistently communicating that that behavior was not okay, or we are not feeling good with each other right now, and also I still love you and you're still lovable, right?
right,
So in a child's perspective, it's like, are we like, is the relationship ruptured? Are we okay? Do you
yeah,
still love me?
yeah. And what a beautiful feeling of knowing that there's been some disconnection or some rupture, but the fundaments are still there and will come back together, and this is not the end.
Yeah.
What a joy. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, how reassuring. And I think about that as a child, but I think about that in intimate relationship or even friendship where someone can say, "I know, I feel it too. I feel like something's off between us right now, and I don't even know or I don't have it in me to repair with you right now, and I also know that we're okay and we will be okay and we're good and I'm
Yeah.
still here."
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Okay, so you just sent me this screenshot from the Five Love Languages website,
Mhm.
which is where the Five Apology Languages quiz is also.
Mhm.
And when I read this list, I didn't see any of these as and ors. I saw them all as ands, because without all five of these, your apology is meaningless to me. Um, the, the headline is True Healing Comes When You Learn to 1. Express regret. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
2. Accept responsibility. I was wrong. 3. Make restitution. How can I make it right? 4, plan for change. I'll take steps to prevent a reoccurrence. And 5, request forgiveness. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me?
Mm-hmm.
In my humble opinion, all of these are necessary to make it clear that you understand. There are feelings related to the understanding. There's a knowledge that action will be required and that there needs to be some connection around it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's crystal clear then. You can tell people in your life, I need all 5. Otherwise, don't bother.
Yeah. And it's a judgmental thought that I have about it. Like, if you really were sorry, you would naturally be doing all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But of
Yeah.
course, I'm not always right about everything.
Well, I think it's good that we can express those judgy thoughts that we have and those high expectations we have of people,
Yeah.
right? And a little bit of the all or nothingness of it all.
Oh, I do run a little bit of that.
This episode's going to be hard for me because Steph and I laugh so much. And I don't know what the name of it that you just looked up what I have, but
Pleurisy.
it hurts when I cough and laugh.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
have joy and pain through this episode.
Oh, that was a good song back in the day. I think a couple of episodes ago, probably, I said, Gigi has the Rona. And so you're still recovering and your lungs are all inflamed. And
They are. But
you're a boss for being here.
the doctors at the hospital took good care of me. There's
Good.
nothing major going wrong. I just have to ride it out, they say.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to share your screen and do this quiz?
Yes, I do. Let me see. Share screen. Okay. So here it is. It's at the 5lovelanguages.com. And they have a number of free quizzes that we can do online. And today we're going to do the apology language quiz, or I am going to do it. And then we're going to chat about what comes up for us. And I think, Steph, you've done it already, and maybe you'll share what came up in your quiz.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Diving in. Pressing start.
Fun.
Okay. I'm going to read out the quiz question or prompt and read out what the options are. We get to choose between 2 options, or I get to choose between 2 options. Okay. It's more meaningful to me when I hear someone say. 1 is, I deeply regret having embarrassed you like I did. Or
I have an idea.
Yes.
To make this more fun for the listeners, why don't you ask the question and I will offer the possible answers in different voices?
Yes, because you have not yet experienced Stephanie and her impersonations. Okay. Fantastic. I'm just going to laugh and be in pain, but let's hope the joy overrides the pain.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first option or the first prompt is, it's more meaningful to me when I hear someone say.
I deeply regret having embarrassed you like I did. Or, our friendship is really important to me. Will you please forgive me?
And I'm going to give you like my live in the moment response. Want to hear the second one?
Oh, doesn't it piss you off?
Yes. I'm like, will you please forgive me? I'm like, screw off.
Yeah.
Now you want something from me?
These words.
I don't care if our relationship's important to you. Like, what about what you did?
Yeah. Can you find it in your heart? Why should I have to find something in my heart now? Come on.
So what I think you're going to get to experience listening to us today is some of those shadow thoughts, right?
Yes.
Those like immediate judgy thoughts that we have we sometimes pretend we don't have. Well, we're going to let you hear ours today.
Yeah. And like, let's deconstruct. So, like, I deeply regret having embarrassed you like I did is to me an appropriately emotional response that demonstrates that they understand how I might be feeling, you know?
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's a feeling thing. Like, yeah, I feel seen and understood by you. And also, what's huge for me is impact, that someone gets the impact that they had on me.
totally. Yeah,
And, maybe we're going to sort of talk about this and do the quiz at the same time. I really felt growing up that my parents didn't understand the impact that their words and actions had on me. And I didn't either know how to explain it, or I got tired of explaining it and got frustrated with explaining it. So for me, it's really meaningful when someone can say that they can see the impact that it had on me. And then this piece of I deeply regret, like, yeah, like I hear some like remorse,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like they get it. Whereas the
Hmm.
second one, it seems selfish to me. Like, the friendship's important, that's nice, but to you, it's important. Like, do I even need to be here? Is this just a festival of me, me, me?
Yeah, it's all about you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I want it to be all about me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to choose the first one.
All right.
Okay. The next prompt is, or the next options are, it's more meaningful to me when someone says,
Okay, I admit it. I made a big mistake. Or, I want to grow from this experience. Would you be willing to help me figure out steps to handle this type of situation better? This is the chat GPT.
no.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Sounds
like,
like a lot of
no.
work. Yeah.
I don't care if
Jesus.
you want to grow from this experience.
Right?
And the funny thing is, it's not that I don't care. I really do want, I want people to grow from experiences. I think I would appreciate this further down the line once we've
Right.
been clean and
Yeah.
complete. And
Yeah.
then if someone were to come to me and ask me this, and also I felt that it was coming from an invitational place and not a demanding place,
Yeah.
um, I would for sure want someone to know, because it's not that I want to hold all these, you know, answers and ways to be in good, healthy connection with me a secret. I want to help whoever, whether it's my friend or my partner, know how to best be with me and support me and do this dance together of connection. But I don't think I would be ready to be met with that response when I haven't felt that the initial rupture has been repaired. So for me, this is not a repair. This is a after repair possibility.
Yeah. And it also feels like a sort of 2023 canned response. Like
Mm,
people are aware they're meant to be taking accountability and owning their feelings. People don't know what this means or what it looks like, so they just say words they've heard on a television show.
right.
I want to grow from this experience. Do you want to grow if it involves admitting a bunch of shame and guilt and having to face a whole bunch of difficult feelings? Maybe less so, but you've already
Right.
committed to it with this nonsense faux apology.
Oh, apology. I have another thing I want to say about this. The second half where it says, would you be willing to help me figure out some steps to handle this type of situation better? I think I would respond better to this if someone said, I really want to grow from this. I've taken some time to reflect. I think that these are some ways that I could have handled it better.
Yeah,
Right? What do you think? Are there some other suggestions that you have? Like something that showed that it's not just me doing the work,
totally.
right? That someone else has put some thought and intention and energy and effort into reflecting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And if they've got some ideas, even that would feel better, like that they've actually thought about it and that they
Hmm.
recognize, oh, this way I've done something is not the best way. It's not the only way. I can see that and I want to connect.
Yeah.
Great.
And the first one, it says, okay, I admit it. I made a big mistake. Like this one is so significant to me.
Yeah.
Like, maybe because growing up, that was the thing I longed for the most, is to
Mm,
have my parents say, yep, it was me. I messed that up.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I feel like never really existed, even though
Mm.
to me it was so glaringly obvious that that happened. I grew up in a family where I think everyone believed it was really shameful to apologize
Right.
and to admit responsibility.
Yeah.
And so I think that left me to become this person who really craved it. So
Yeah.
if someone could say to me, admit it, I made a big mistake, even as you read it, immediately everything, like my body just settles. And
Mm.
I think also what happens is, for me, I'm like, oh, I don't have to convince you anymore. I don't have to use all my energy to show you how
Mm.
that thing that happened was so wrong and so not okay. And I think I spent a lot of time and energy and effort as a child trying to explain that to my parents and feeling like I was getting nowhere.
Yeah.
So if I get the sense now that I don't have to explain it to you and I don't have to convince you that this thing was absolutely not okay, um, then it's a relief to my whole system. I can just settle.
Yeah.
And if I look back at my relationship history, and the people I chose to be in partnership with, this was a huge piece. I felt like, with every single person, and these were lovely men, like they weren't, they were good, nice, good-hearted people. But the common thread was they all had a hard time with that self-awareness piece and reflection piece of like how something they said or did really was hurtful and not okay. And so I would have to sit there and explain it all. And when I would explain my perspective and how something impacted me, all of them would say, oh my God, like, sorry, like that's bad. I get
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And that is nice at some point. But I also started to see, like, I'm so tired of that. Like, I don't
Mm.
always want to have to be the person to point out what's not okay,
Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to point out here a subtlety of language that I think is significant because we do pull out words and make them mean things, especially if we're
Hmm.
in a fight or something and we get an apology like, okay, I admit it, I made a big mistake. Admit, that little word right there is something I could go back on in my mind and be like, oh, well, they maybe weren't going to admit it and they were like forced to admit it. To me, it's I was going to lie and I'm not lying anymore, but I might lie in the future, you know? If this was tweaked a bit and it was like,
Hmm.
okay, wow, I made a big mistake,
Yeah.
that for me would be like 100 times more impactful.
Yeah. So interesting. I love that. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I'm wondering if that word has any charge for me. I think I have a bit of a different, I think, feel with that word admit, because I think as a little girl, I'm like, just freaking admit it. You were
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
And I think I crave that so much. So, yeah.
Mm, yeah. Neat.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay.
I'm choosing choice number one. Okay. Next one. It's more meaningful to me when someone tells me, oh, it's your turn.
What can I do or say to make things right between you and me? Or, I had a bad attitude and it showed. I should have thought more about what I was doing.
Just want to like bear hug you. For me, I would say definitely the second one feels better. I had a bad attitude and it showed. I should have thought more about what I was doing.
Like I should have thought more about how to not let my bad attitude show.
Like, I think for me, why this one, I'm drawn to this one is, yeah, it's the acknowledgement of like something that they were doing that wasn't helpful. And it's a reflection on like what they think would have been more helpful. So for me, this shows more like clarity, or like I'm making the assumption this means someone has more clarity and perhaps um more information to do things differently the next time.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, this one is a good example of owning a thing, of taking accountability. Like there will be
Mm-hmm.
some steps that need to follow, but the understanding of it and
Mm-hmm.
owning that. Whereas the first one again feels too rushed, and it feels like I can think of some people I know who would be like, okay, a bad thing happened, like, okay, let's go. What's the solution?
Right.
Yeah, bypassing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, bypassing. Exactly. Like, we're not here validating what actually happened first. We're trying to go to solution right away.
Yeah.
And I can see that when people are uneasy and uncomfortable feeling and being in the space of someone's upset, that we might want to like speed along to like reparation. Like, what can we do? You
Yeah.
know? And what can we do or what can we say? Like, that sounds so robotic to me.
Mm-hmm.
As if like there's just a set of things that you can do or say and then all of a sudden everything's right.
Yeah. And that I know
Um
what all of those are right now in response to this question,
yeah.
while a repair still needs to be made.
Yeah. And again, like I think there are things that someone could do or say to repair. But I think that for me comes too soon again.
Yeah.
And same theme of like, now you're asking me again?
Right?
Like I have to work for this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Agreed. So number 2.
And
Oh,
I wonder if also maybe this is what highlighting something for me. I would like these conversations to be preventative. Like,
mm,
wouldn't it be nicer to like sit down and have a general sense with
yes.
someone before there's a whole bunch of things that need to be repaired, and
Yeah.
trying to learn this about each other in each repair conversation? I mean, I think it's great to
Mm,
want to learn this about each other in each repair conversation, but
mm,
I think I would feel much more lit up to be in connection with people where you could know this about each other
yeah.
early on.
Oh, well, you sound like a conscious relationship specialist. I think one of the reasons we don't tend to do that, other than the fact that we're in unconscious relationships, the vast majority of the world um, is because in those first stages of your honeymoon phase of your relationship, you're so in tune with each other that you're clocking all of these shifts in energy and words, and you're paying attention in a way that just falls off after we've been together for a while. So you may have been on track with someone who needed an apology, or preventative stuff was kind of happening at that phase, and then that just completely ends and we fall back into our old family patterns, and we never
Yeah,
took the time to have an important preventative conversation.
that's a good point. There can be like a lot more attunement early on when things feel shiny and good and you're
Mm-hmm.
excited to get to know each other. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that you feel when things come out of attunement earlier,
Yeah.
and it's probably simpler to repair and come back into connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so definitely not the first one. Okay, next one. Um it's more meaningful to me when someone says,
I don't want to do this again, so I will come up with ways to avoid mistakes like this in the future. Or I'm running out of little voices. I apologize for my actions. You obviously don't have to forgive me, but I hope you will.
blah, that makes me want to puke.
It's like they're saying it while they're like walking away and waving you off, you know? Cool, you got a problem? Yeah, I hope you'll forgive me.
See ya.
Yeah.
um yeah, that second one, I apologize for my actions. Like there's a way to say this that I think feels really sincere, and there's also a way to say this that feels very like dismissive in a way. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
describing, like they're just words and see you later.
If they were apologizing for the impact of their actions, would that
Yes.
be more meaningful for you?
Um Yes, however, I think I have a deeper need, which is I need to hear from you what you think the impact was of your actions. That's a
Mm,
thing that I've noticed is when someone can share with me how they believe their actions impacted me, then I'm like, okay, I'm here,
they get it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
Um, and this second half is terrible. Um,
Do whatever you want. Hope you forgive me.
and like to me, when you first said it, I don't know if I heard it this way. It's a little bit of like self-deprecating, shame-filled.
Mm,
You obviously don't have to forgive me, you know, like
yeah. I
I'm
have no
so
value.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
had people apologize where they're like, "You're right. I am such a shitty person."
Oof.
And I'm like, "No, no, no, wait a second."
Yeah.
Like, and it took me years to see beyond this and get stuck by this I'm a shitty person, because then I'd be like, "Oh, no, you're not. We're all human. We all make mistakes." And then I realized now I'm consoling this person.
Totally. Cleverly designed tool that. Yeah.
Now it's all about you again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What a brutal outcome of not being familiar with rupture and repair, right? Like, if I've done something wrong, the only possibility is that I'm the worst piece of shit in town. And
Yeah.
you don't have to forgive me, but I hope you will,
So sad. Like that. I mean,
Yeah.
we're sort of laughing about this, but like I feel a lot of sadness,
Yeah.
right? That's sort of the belief underlying, or possibly a belief underlying someone responding in that way.
Totally. Yeah, I've felt this way, Why would they
Mm-hmm.
forgive me? I have no value. Like, I've ruined the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Hard feelings.
Yeah. Also, I want to say, like, we're doing this sort of, it's a little cheeky. We're laughing. We're sort of really sharing our shadow thoughts, our immediate thoughts that come up. But, like, if someone was really sincerely taking their time to apologize with me and repair, like, I'm not going to sit here and, like, laugh at them and, like, make them feel like it wasn't the apology in the exact right way.
Yeah.
I think the purpose of this conversation is to get a little bit clear on which types of apologies feel best and why. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
And what might come up for you, when you encounter
Mhm.
these words. Like, G and I give an awful lot of thought and reflection to all the words and thoughts and feelings that we have, and we kind of want to bring that to people, because all of these words are going to have different meanings for you. They're going to trigger up different feelings, and creating an inner map of what that looks like and how it comes out in relationships is pretty dang important.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to say something else about the first one again,
yes.
because it irritates me. I don't want to do this again, so I will come up with ways to avoid mistakes like this in the future. I get the image of, like, a horse speeding down the street, dragging me along behind it, deciding what mistakes I want it to avoid and how. And I'm like, this is
Mm,
a relational event.
yeah.
Not wanting to do this again will involve me and how I interpret things.
Mhm.
And avoiding mistakes like this in the future will also involve me and how I interpret things. So I don't want the other party to come up with ideas on their own that might be all crazy kinds of wrong that have nothing to do with the impact on me, which
Right.
is entirely my only concern, apparently.
Yeah, I can definitely feel what you're saying here. I also feel this response is a bit like rigid.
Hmm.
Um, and like, yeah, it has the air of I need to solve this all by myself and like never disappoint you again.
Totally.
And that's not really the feel that I think I want in connection with someone.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like it feels like too much responsibility.
Yeah.
Taking on too much responsibility, and also a little bit maybe with an underlying belief of like I suck and I really messed this up.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Um,
if I do this again, there will be, like, I'll be removed from the roster kind of thing. I really
Right.
dislike it when people are like, I will never hurt you, or I will never do X, Y, or Z. I'm like, these are promises that can't be made. Please don't make them.
Mm-hmm.
But let's figure out how we might repair when things happen.
Right. And I think there was a time like really early on when, especially being someone who did not receive many, if any, apologies growing up, um, that if someone said, I will never hurt you, I'd be like, okay, thank you. I
Yeah,
love you.
looking for this my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
told me you were never gonna hurt me. How could you
Hey,
do this?
this sounds like the soundtrack of my early relationship. Funny. So as much as the first one isn't the ideal, I find it better for me than the second one. So I'm going to choose the first
Yeah.
one. All right. So this next one is it's more meaningful to me when someone asks me. I just realized my sentence is always the same.
It's all, oh, it is. Yeah. Possibly forgive me. Or, what can I do to mend our relationship?
Yes. So the first one feels gross.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think based on things we've spoken about, like, is this just about you wanting to feel forgiven so you feel better about yourself? Or do you actually care about me and how this feels for me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like the what can I do to mend our relationship? Again, like maybe not with those words, but I like the sentiment behind it of like, what can I do? Like, what ownership can I take? What actions can I undertake that will help our repair a connection?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Not much to say about this one, really.
No, pretty clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. It's more meaningful to me when I hear someone say,
I totally messed up. I could make excuses, but really I have no excuse for my actions. Or, you have every right to hold this against me, but will you please consider forgiving me?
yeah, no.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me again. Like, I don't know. I just don't like this. Like, you have every right. I would like you have every right to be upset,
Mm-hmm.
but or to feel this way. But I really don't like hold this against me. Like, that's not really
Mm-hmm.
something I want to participate in relationship. Um, so I would hope that whoever I'm in relationship with also doesn't want to participate in this, act of holding things against each other.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you personally. And I'm very aware there seems to be like a whole dimension of society who is like on purpose holding things against each other, and they're like collectively agreeing that that's the way. And there's some kind of power trip in there that I could imagine for some people at some stage of their journey,
Mm-hmm.
that having the right and being told they have the right, like it's almost being told that you're allowed to be mad, you know?
Yeah.
And that sort of feels good to me. This is where we're going to pause until next week. And for now, Gigi will lead us through a closing practice.
So let's take a moment to connect in with your body. And maybe feel your butt on the chair or your feet on the ground. Maybe it's your hands touching something. I'm going to ask you to look at any object. It doesn't matter what it is. And once you see it, I want you to look for a new detail about this object that you haven't quite noticed before or you haven't really paid attention to. Right? I'm looking up because I see a little picture frame and I'm just looking at the little ridges that I never quite pay attention to. And I want you to look at that detail and feel your butt on the chair or your feet on the floor. And then we're going to turn and find another object. And we're going to look at this object And also look for a detail in this object that is new to you or something you don't usually spend much time looking at. And this time, if you can look at that detail and feel your hands touching whatever they're touching. And then I'm going to have you turn to behind you. And again, we're going to do the same thing, looking at an object and finding one detail that's new. This time, as you look, notice your breath. And then come back to sitting or being in a way that's comfy for you. Give yourself a moment to notice how that felt to do. Was it easy or was it hard? I really love this practice because it reminds us to look for the newness in what's familiar. And I think that's helpful not just in the things we see, but in the people who we know and the people who we love and the people who we spend time with. Are we willing to see what's new? Are we willing to see a piece that maybe we haven't seen before, even though they're always in front of us? So there's that.
Thanks, G, and thanks for joining us. As always, please like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. See you next time.